opportunity I have to talk about entrepreneurship, things like financing, I'll jump at the chance. So I appreciate being here. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to eat lunch while we talk too. No, I'm just kidding. That would be really terrible. I hope you are having a great day. Obviously, lots of good stuff coming on. Suddenly, it's like it feels like it's gone from -10 or even 0 to like +30 in the space of 3 days. I'm so not prepared for that. So if I start sweating profusely, you'll know why. But I'm going to share my screen and then I'll get into a little introduction. And feel free to go ahead and throw comments or ideas in the chat. I try to keep it open and watch what's happening with it. I can't say I'll answer them right away. If I can, I will. And if I don't, certainly remind me at the end and we'll make sure we get as much answered as possible. I tend to have a lot more fun doing live, interactive coaching and discussing. And I find that that's very beneficial for everybody to learn around that as we, answer different independent, very specific questions. So feel free to have the courage and certainly the gumption to go ahead and ask some big, hard, tough questions, and I'll be doing everything I can to answer them. Okay, so share my screen and we'll go from there. So we're going to talk today about financing your business, and of course, this is a huge subject and very broad place to try to focus on. I'm going to cover off a lot of generalities and some basics and hopefully some things that I find and try to encourage to be very, very important for the entrepreneurs that I work with and I'm talking to on a regular basis. So the first thing about this is I'm going to talk about me just for a moment. This is my little brief introduction. First of all, this is my family of complete geeks. We are total music nerds and love all the heavy stuff, especially. But I have 6 businesses on the go right now, and probably more depending on what kind of projects you're talking about. But I'm a master delegator, so I'm usually pretty good at pushing them off onto other people's plates instead of onto mine. Very, very quickly, Think is a holding company. It does some consulting at the high end for bigger companies, but for the most part, it's just a holding company for all the other companies. Evolution is a drywall company. We're reinventing drywall to be lightweight, fireproof, mold-proof type thing. And that's got a long ways to go, a long ways to evolve, as it were, but huge demand, huge need in this space. Global Acuity is a renewables energy platform. We're basically trying to we were working with a municipality, and so when cool renewable projects or waste to energy or things like that come into play, we create a little platform where they can test bed it, sandbox where they can try some of these things out with a few homes. If it works, we can roll it out to the whole municipality, and then we're going to do that across multiple municipalities over time. So Lend Hope is one of my favorites. It's a very important one. We do basically it's a crowdfunding micro-lending app. So entrepreneurs in developing countries, they're looking to raise a little bit of capital to help their farming business or mechanics business, or juice business, and we will help them raise $750 to $1,500. There's a training component, and then we put them on a website or an app where they can raise capital through a crowdfunding type platform, and then we're helping entrepreneurs get out of poverty. And then Fuse 42 is an SDG accelerator, and so we are housed out of MacEwan, and I'm the EIR for MacEwan. And so we are doing some cool things there, helping entrepreneurs solve the big.
You're on mute.
I think it's a connectivity problem.
You might have to turn your camera off for your audio to work right now.
Okay, I can do that. I don't need to see me. You can still see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. All right, so the Entrepreneur Roadmap, like I said, is just a do-it-yourself online training program, and we've got an app coming out the next week or so, actually, so for testing. And we have some good representation in about 12 different jurisdictions around the world currently, and kind of expanding and continuing to try to figure that out. Anyways, if I was to sum up Colin in one phrase, this is it. This is what I'm trying to do. is just ending needless failure for entrepreneurs. So today we're going to talk specifically about financing. And the biggest issue with anything in entrepreneurship in general is that everybody's got a great idea for a business, but it's very different experience in actually building a business around that idea. It's not as easy. It's not intuitive. It's a difficult challenge. And it's certainly when it comes to financing, it's like, I've got the greatest idea in the world. I don't know why people aren't going to give and throw money at it, right? Like that's really what we all think should happen, but it rarely does. I will start by saying this though. I've had a lot of success. I think we've raised, probably, or helped companies raise well over $10 million, probably closer to 20 now, but over the years. But I've done a pitch for 10 minutes and got $500,000 before. It doesn't have to be complicated to raise capital. You just have to know what you're doing and know how to pitch it in such a way that it'll work. So although it's not intuitive, there are some things that you can do to make it work. Now, here's the biggest challenge, right? Going back to that initial statement, it feels like there's a tension between investors and the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs are going, first of all, there's not enough money out there, right? And the investors are going, wait a second, we've got lots of money. There's not enough good deals out there. That's one problem. The other problem is the entrepreneurs are going, this is the greatest idea in the world. Why aren't you financing it? And the investors going, okay, you know nothing about your idea or the market. Why would I invest in it, right? So there's this tension that's created all the time. And I'm not saying that's overcomable even, but it is addressable, right? It's a tension that has to be managed rather than just a blanket solution that you can throw at it and expect to work. So the reason that this is a problem is I have a statement that I use a lot when it comes to financing and when it comes a lot to sales and everything. A confused mind says no, right? I guarantee if you're going to go and you're going to try to buy a car or some kind of a machine or something that's really important, if you don't understand it or what kind of value it's going to give you or bring you, you're going to just say no, right? I mean, that's the way it is. It's easy to if you don't understand it, you just say no until you understand it. And once you do, you say yes, right? So it's very important when you're explaining and pitching your business, and especially when it comes to money, that you have to be clear. It has to be simple. It has to be understood. You got to get rid of the confusion. You can get rid of the confusion, you can get to yeses. So the way I help position entrepreneurs in this, and I think it's really important. If I could, a guy came to me yesterday, actually, a friend, I have a friend who's a mentor, and a lot of the entrepreneur roadmap that we were talking about earlier came from him like 6-7 years ago, not from him, but in my times with him as I was mentoring him and coaching him. And anyways, he introduced me to his brother who has this world-changing idea for an app, right? I kind of say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but I think it's an awesome idea. It really can work. But as per every entrepreneur out there, it's a great idea, but you're not knowing what it is yet until you really understand it. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The thing he asked was, okay, what's one of the best traits you can have as an entrepreneur? And I was thinking about it. I came up with a couple: tenacity and hard work and diligence and flexibility and the ability to sell. There's 1,000 different ways to look at it. But the one that I really settled on, and I really think is important for all of us as entrepreneurs, is you have to be objective. You have to be willing to look at your business not as if it's your baby, but as if you are the investor. Really, ultimately, you're spending your time, energy, money, all that stuff in your business. You should look at it as an investor. Is it a good investment? Is it worth your time, energy, and money? If it isn't, move on, go do something else. It might be better to have a 9-to-5 job, right? Now, as an entrepreneur and unemployable, I would say that, I love entrepreneurship. But my point is, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, look at things through the investor's perspective. That tension that we talked about earlier is coming from the idea that the investor is looking at things a certain way and the entrepreneur is looking at things a different way. If you can move the entrepreneur over to the investor's seat, now they put their arms around each other and say, yeah, that's the problem with that business. If we can solve that, it's going to be amazing. And the investor goes, you're right, let's do it. Right? We have to be objective. So, and by the way, that's quoting me. Yeah, that's me saying it. And so that's, as lame as that is, I apologize. But if I could get everybody, all the all the entrepreneurs to understand this, we'd be off to a great start. Okay, when it comes to investing, and by the way, we're going to talk about all kinds of different financing. We're not just talking about investing, but the beautiful thing about the idea of an investor, right, is that objectivity. If you can look at your business through the lens of an investor, you're going to get a whole new perspective about your business, right? And if you can answer these things, then you're going to have a lot better chance of even in your own success. If you're the first investor, even if you never want investment, right, whether it's a bank or a grant or an angel or a VC or whatever to invest in your business, that's awesome. You need to look at it from your own perspective. Is this worth my time, energy, and money, right? And will it get what I want? And that's the two questions. Every investor wants to know the same question. They all want to know, is this realistic? Are these numbers, this growth curve, these things that you're looking at, the budget, the sales numbers, the conversion rates, all the things that go into those numbers, are these numbers realistic? And do you have the people in the plan to carry it out? You know, you're expecting some kind of an ROI. Either it's a part-time business and you just want $500 extra a month and some free time with your family, that's an ROI. Do you have the plan and the people to carry it out? If you want to turn it into $1 billion unicorn exit and you're doing it and it's going to take you 6 years to do it, great. You have the plan and the people to do it. Every every investor, and frankly entrepreneur, should ask these two questions. Are these numbers? Dig in until you have a real true picture of the realistic numbers and a really true picture, plan, and the people to carry it out. You could have a bunch of people carrying it out, but are they the right people, right? So do you have the right people to carry it out? And the plan, of course, is execution can be crazy times. So, all right. So going back to this idea of financing and money, one of the, and certainly the objectivity of the investor, this is such a scary number to me. This is from CB Insights, but 42% of all the businesses are failing because they don't have a market need. What does that mean? Like, how do you get there, right? Clearly something has had to happen. This guy said, I got a great idea for a business. I'm going to go do it. He's going to invest a bunch of time, money, and energy in building this. And then 42% of the time they fail. Why? Because they didn't check the market. They didn't really talk to the market. They thought it was a great idea, but they didn't actually look into validating the important parts of it. But there's a whole bunch of things in there. A second in there is ran out of cash. We'll talk about that, right? And team, we talked about that a little bit. You can see very, very quickly, these are very important reasons to look at, but right at the top, if you're not building something that people want, you're not going to get financed either. Okay. Everybody knows, well, I won't say everybody knows this, but I'm going to give you a very quick illustration just so we're all singing from the same song sheet. There's a number, right? That green number is the cash flow, right? You know, at first you have none. In fact, you're losing money fast because you're pouring it into whatever it takes to make your business. And so that's the negative cash flow until it gets up to zero. And then ultimately it bypasses your expenses. And of course, we know this little space to be a thing called break even, right? The problem is what happened, right? And so the whole point is, this is what we're looking to finance a lot of the time. Whether it's, you know, your basement business that you're going to run and just have a little thing out of the basement, or, you know, your next Facebook or big multi-billion-dollar exit that you're looking for, all of it has a break even. It should have, unless it's a hobby. But if it's a real business, it should have an outflow, and you need to figure out how you're going to get from the beginning to the break even. That's what you're looking for to finance. And how you finance that is what we're going to talk about. Before that, I'm going to take one quick little pause on something that I wish I knew, and then I wish every entrepreneur knows at the beginning of their journey. So let's just take a quick pause here. There's a local superhero in my mind named Blaine Birch. Maybe you've met him. Awesome guy. Wrote a book called, has a company called Dry Run. And Dry Run is an amazing company. It's basically doing cash flow. He also wrote a book, ironically enough, before the pandemic called Cash Flow Pandemic. And it's talking about, one of the things he says in that book that is so scary to me, but 30% of businesses fail due to cash flow. Here's the bad and scary part. 70% of those failed businesses were profitable when they failed. So in other words, they had enough money, they were making enough money, they created profit, and yet because of cash flow, they failed, right? Cash flow, the way I describe cash flow, you've got your budget, because you can do a budget month to month. This is what my budget looks like. Every month I pay these kind of expenses. Cash flow is when, right? When does money come in? When does money go out? Because if you have a $10,000 thing bill come in and your income, your revenue doesn't come in until the end of the month, you could be screwed, right? There could be a major problem there. That's a cash flow problem. So it may be profitable. You may make lots of money over and above your expenses, but if you don't have it at the right time, you're in trouble. Okay, so where this comes in is a very great book called by Mike McAllowitz, and I'm going to reference it at the end, called Profit First. Very simple concept, and I just want you to understand this. Typical accounting, and most people, if you get advice from an accountant, it's awesome, do so. They always do this type of accounting, which is revenue minus expenses equals profit. I mean, you see it on every cash P&L statement and income statement that you get. That's how it looks. Here's your revenue, here's your expenses, here's what you're left over, your net income at the end. So that's how the world looks at things. I want to change that though. I want to shift that though to something different, where you go, instead of not doing revenue minus expenses equals profit, how about the other way around? Revenue minus profit equals expenses. Because I'll tell you what, if you're an entrepreneur or probably have lived on your own for any amount of time, you've probably figured out how to manage your bills with whatever money is in the bank, right? Sometimes there's not enough. Sometimes there is, you know, and when there isn't, you get creative. You figure out ways to do it. So here's the problem. If you're constantly bringing in revenue and immediately just paying all your bills because you have that revenue, you're not likely going to have any profit. So you're not likely going to have any profit. And so that's when it really comes down to it is you've got to be able to look at taking your revenue and then moving a little piece aside. I like this little pie slice picture here, right? Your revenue is everything you have coming in. I mean, I explain this to grade 5 and 6 year, students as well. So forgive this for being simple, but man, oh man, I wish, I was taught this when I was 20, 30, 40, but the revenue is
You're muted again. We can't hear you. Hello? Dale, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. It doesn't look like he's muted, but it does look like maybe it's an internet problem.
Yeah.
on mine or on.
Oh, there you go. You're good now. You just
there you are,
cut
Colin.
out. You're there.
Okay.
You're there now.
All right, but thanks for the update. I mean, my lips are flapping, but no noise is coming out. So
Yeah, it stopped. But
yeah, it's not me. It's the internet somewhere along the way. So I apologize.
yeah.
Revenue.
Just take kids off the internet.
Yeah. Revenue whole pie. Take out your piece first, even if it's a small piece. Take out your piece first. Okay, and then pay the bills with whatever's left over. That's the concept I want you to get across. Even if it's 2%, 3%, 5%, whatever it is, take a little bit off the top. Read the book. It's an amazing book because it'll actually go into details on how to do this and set up percentages, target percentages, and start adjusting and working it out over time. But the scary thing is so few businesses profit. That's terrible. Part of it is because they pay every expense they get in. You're not going to get creative if there's no need to. So force yourself to be creative. Take a little profit out first. It's called Mike McAllowitz Profit First. And I'm going to reference it at the end. Give you that as a part of it. Okay, let's get into the part of it a little bit. Types of financing. Obviously, you can just use whatever you got in the bank. Break your piggy bank and use whatever you have. Use the Visa, things like that. There's next level is kind of things like grants, and then you can get into banks. You can get into customers and crowdfunding, which we're going to touch on. That's an important one. We're going to talk about friends, family, and fools a little bit, which I call love money, right? They love your idea and love you, not necessarily, get the idea of why business is important. Then you get into angels, venture capital, and also ultimately kind of an IPO. There's more than just this, and some people might slice it 100 different ways, but this is kind of what we want to work with excuse me, to just explain the basics. So when we go into this, there's the way a lot of people would describe it is two types of financing, really. Non-dilutive, right? So that's the stuff that does not cost you equity. It doesn't cost you a piece of the company. If you use your own money, you're not giving up any of your company, right? It's still 100% your company. If you go and get a grant, often they're not looking for anything of your company either. You might have a debt, or you might not have to pay it back at all, but they're not asking you for anything of your company. Same with banks. Banks are going to give you money at an interest rate, but they're not going to ask you for any part of your company. Then you can get into things where you get into customers and crowdfunding and friends, family, and fools. That might be equity based. It might have a portion of your ownership of company, depending on how you structure it, but it doesn't need to be. A lot of the time, crowdfunding can give up prizes or products that you've developed or things like that. It doesn't need to be reliant on that. Some people give you money. You go to your mom and ask for $5,000, and she may give that to you because she loves you, right? And she's not necessarily looking for a piece of equity, right? And then dilutive funding are where you get into, okay, now you're going to give me some money for my business, and I'm going to give you a portion of my company. That's called dilutive. That's where you're diluting the ownership of your company. So there's angels, and they're usually passionate about a particular area of interest and want to help you. There's venture capital, which is a more savvy version of that. And they're looking for kind of a huge exit, and definitely are going to hold your feet to the fire on that. And they're going to go deep on due diligence. Not to say that everybody shouldn't, but they're definitely going to do that. And then going public is a huge cost, a very big way of raising capital, and it opens it up to the public market. That's the stock market. That's what. So, and again, I can answer lots of questions on these, but I just wanted to give you a framework before we kind of explain it. If you guys don't understand that, let me know, but I think they're mostly fairly intuitive with the descriptions there. What I want to do now is I want to break it down into a couple of offerings, the way to look at these things. Okay, so the amount of money versus the ease of getting them. So can you see my cursor? Right. So this way up here is an IPO. You can get a lot of money, but it's also extremely difficult to get, right? And then, venture capitalists, angels, it gets a little easier. Banks, grants, right? Grants are relatively easy to get, but it's not huge amounts of, right? Notice up here, high amount, easy to get. That's a good quadrant to have. And that is getting money from your customer, okay? Prepaying for things, or somebody that's particularly interested and becomes a strategic investor they want some good outcome of what you are offering. And so they give you some capital up front or take a small piece.
We lost your volume again, Colin.
Yeah, we lost you again.
Can you hear me?
There you are.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is just an underserved area that I think everybody should use more of, and we can talk about that more. And then love money, of course, and your own money. So low amounts often, but pretty easy to get. But this right here is the key. If you can do that, do more of it. Now let's look at it from another axis, how much time it takes to get it versus the cost of getting it. Like, what are you giving up in order to get it? Again, as an IPO, you give up a lot, and it takes a long time, right? Same with venture capital. It usually takes a long time in due diligence, but you can get a lot of money. You get $3, $5, $10 million through an IP or through venture capitalist. Then you get angels. It doesn't cost you a lot often. You're still going to get an equity spend. Same with banks. It costs you some in interest rather than equity, non-dilutive, but it's not too bad on time. Grants can take a lot of time. Remember, I sometimes question whether a grant is even worth it. I don't do a lot of grants anymore because it takes too much time and it's not that big of a payout. And then there's the 7 years of reporting about it afterwards. So love money, right? It doesn't take a lot of time to get. You got to go beg your mom and probably have dinner with them a few times. Make sure that you're sucking up to them and then do that. But again, low amount of time, low cost. Oh my goodness. Go and talk to your customers. It's amazing how powerful that is. Okay, so now you got a bunch of money. Yay, congratulations. You've got some grant money, you've got some funding, you got whatever it is. Now, how do you use it wisely? This is the lean startup method. I mean, it's kind of a modified version of it. But very, very simply, you have an epiphany, you have an idea, make an assumption about something. You check it to see if it's valid, get metrics of it, see if it works, see if it does what it's supposed to do. And if it doesn't, you pivot, right? And then you try another one. Okay, well, if that didn't work, how about this idea? And you keep going around the circle. The faster and the smaller you can make this, the better it is for your company, right? So what I usually say is, what can you do in the shortest amount of time and the least amount of money to prove this idea, right? Shorten the time cycle that it takes to prove something out and reduce the amount of money that it takes. So build things out of cardboard, right? There's 1,000 different ways to do this. There's lots of innovation ideas in the lean startup, and there's a couple of different books out there that talk a lot about this. But the whole point of it is, how can you do it in the least amount of time, for the least amount of money, and see that it actually somebody thinks it can work. Go there first, and then keep building, and you're going to reduce less money. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you guys for some questions, and then I'm pretty much done here. I've just got a slide on resources and kind of an exit slide. But to review your questions, what are the two major types of financing, and what's the difference? Remember? Anybody want to weigh in on that? There's two kinds. One,
giving up what? What are you
dilutive and non-dilutive.
Yes.
Exactly. Thank you. Dilutive and non-dilutive. That's a bit of a cheater question because it didn't even come across that way. I didn't say types of financing, but you're right. Yeah. Stuff that costs you parts of your company and stuff that doesn't, in the simplest term. So what's one of the best underutilized ways of funding? That one I covered off. I hope you remember that.
Funding from customer.
Sorry? Say that again?
Funding from customers.
Yes. Working with your customers, help them pay in advance or figure out a way to invest in you because of the outcome that you're going to get. Hugely important and very, very cool way of doing things. So why do businesses fail? Do you remember? Top reason?
They haven't validated the market.
Exactly. They haven't proven that somebody actually wants it. No market need. So how do you avoid it?
Well, I think it was your previous slide where you actually come up with an idea, you test it in a small group, measure that, and then if you need to pivot or change direction and try again.
Yeah, and I saw some of that. Thank you. I was just noticing the comments coming in. Yeah, beta testing, research, checking it out, talking with customers. Okay, let's just stick with that one. Go and talk to customers and validate it. Absolutely. Okay, and can anybody explain the simple terminology of profit first? I'll give you a hint. It's not, revenue minus expenses equals profit.
Pay yourself first.
Yeah, well, at least take a little bit of profit first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take all the revenue comes in, take a little piece of profit, stick it away, hide it away somewhere, and then pay your expenses. Absolutely. Great. Okay. And where is break even? What does break even look like? What is the point of break even?
When
Right.
sales and expenses equal.
Sorry, say again.
When sales and expenses equal.
To a degree, yes. I mean, that's a very fair way to put it. Absolutely. When your break even is when your revenue starts or your cash flow starts overtaking your expenses. So now you have more. You're left with basically a profit. So yes, awesome. So nobody told you there was going to be a test today, right? I bet you that that wasn't. So here's some books for you. I can share this presentation with you. You can have it. I'll send it in a PDF to Cecile, and she can pass it out there. And so these 5 books are really good. There's Mike Michalowicz's book, Profit First. Will It Fly is a very simple, great book. Obviously, Lean Startup, Venture Deals. Venture Deals is amazing. If you haven't read it, I mean, it reads like an encyclopedia. But if you're going to raise capital, this is the subtitle of this book is awesome, and it is no more than your lawyer or your VC. So it's great, and it's put together. Brad Feld founded Techstars, so it's a very and Jason Mendelson is his lawyer, right? So very good guys teaming up to make a very important book. I think it's on the 5th iteration now. And then building a story brand is just great. It's how to tell the story and talk about your business to people. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys for questions. A couple of things on here. I mentioned earlier the Entrepreneur Roadmap. It is a online tool accessible for everybody. It is not. It's not going to replace the work that Nate does or what I do within my accelerator. It can't replace those things, or even the work that that we'll do in any of the universities here, right? Like Dale, for example, is an EIR as well. So go to him and talk with him. The Entrepreneur Roadmap is not going to replace that. But the Entrepreneur Roadmap is a do-it-yourself suite of tools to help you answer the questions about you and your business that you're going to need to know. You need to know these things, and there's not really a current way to do it. If you don't get help and support from somebody like a Dale or like a Cecile, you're going to kind of question and run around in circles for a while until you get some of these. So it's a whopping $4.90 a month, or $100 for 2 years. So it's pretty darn cheap. But there's a 30-day trial coupon code there if you want to. And we have an app coming out, like I said, next week. So if you're looking for a tester, or I'm looking for testers, I got 40 or 50 of them already. But if you want to test it as an entrepreneur and get in and see what it's like as an app, please reach out to me. Email me. There's my email. Text me, whatever you like, and I can put on a little list. And within the next week or two, we'll be getting some things out. And if you just take a picture of the QR code, it'll take you right to it. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and answer questions.
Once you stop sharing, you could probably turn your camera back on.
Sure.
If it doesn't work, I'll let you know.
Oh, no, it does. I just got to find the right button. Not that you want to see me or anything, but that's okay.
Okay, so
thanks for answering questions, guys. I see you've got a bunch of answers in there, and they're often right. Some of those books, and by the way, Katie, awesome. Blinkist is one of my favorite tools. It is an amazing tool, and it's a great way I can barrel through 30 or 40 books. I read 500 books in 1 year using that. And it's a great tool to be able to kind of get an overview of a whole bunch of things all at once, and then go in deep when to go in and reread a certain book. So some of them are, though. I think you can read the summaries on there, but honestly, for some of those books, I really encourage you to get into the details. Those are my version of, after all the dilution and all the things that I took out of all the books I've read, those are some of the fundamental ones that I think you should spend your time on. Okay, questions, over to you. Financing, anything I can help with? As an accelerator, I can put you through, grind you through some of the things, because as an accelerator, we're not going to invest in you if you're not in the right place yet. So,
hey, Colin, George here. Maybe you could expand a little bit about how you would work with customers to get them to help fund you. Because I work with some people and they have a handful of customers, but they're spending time writing grants or making pitches, and maybe their efforts might be better off dealing with the people that they know. But how would you even start that conversation?
I think that's a great question, and thanks for asking it, George. There's a couple of things that are really important here. And part of that is, do you know the problem you're solving? Please say yes, but unfortunately, like I said, 42% of businesses are failing because they haven't built a market need. In other words, they're making something that they're hoping somebody's going to buy. So, yeah, George,
validated that it works, right? Validated that, and also having dialogue with the customers to improve what's going on, right? So it's early days. but got a handful, literally a handful of customers, and getting some feedback, and but also avoiding each customer as a custom application or custom solution, right? Trying to
now you may modify it along the way as needed, but yes, my point is this: you need to be able to your business solution or your solution for the customer has to be such that the problem is big enough that they'd be excited about talking to you about this opportunity. Now, if I'm selling my app at $4.90 a month, it's going to be hard to pre-fund it. Although, as you can tell, with an app, you're usually paying in advance. You get to try it a little bit, but then you're paying for it month over month. And so that's one way to do it. Do you have, okay, we're going to talk about this for just a second, but the cash cycle, right? The time that you have to spend money to create your solution between the time it takes you to get paid for delivering that solution, right? Consulting, sometimes you can pay a third, right? So you get a little bit of money up front, a little bit of money in the middle, a little bit of money when you deliver the project at the end. That's a cash cycle that's kind of blended, right? If you're going and buying a car or a product, a lot of the time products are paid for in the beginning, right? Unless you're going on interest, and that's a whole other third party. But my point is, if you buy a product, you're often paying for it. You're not going to walk out of the Best Buy with a TV, right? And tell them you'll pay them next month, aside from a third party that's going to help you with that, right? So you have to pay for it in advance. They get paid for it, and then they give you the product, and away you go. But a service is often delivered afterwards, right? If you're a cleaning service, sometimes you're going to go and do the cleaning, and then you're going to get paid afterwards. Sometimes services take longer, right? And you can have a very long cash cycle. So my point on this, to answer, we're coming full circle on that, George, is, and I know you know this, I'm obviously answering it for everybody else, but if you can figure out a way to start getting some of the money, if not all of the money up front, that's a good thing. That's at least one part. So that's one way to do it. How can you reverse your cash cycle or shorten the cash cycle so that you have money up front to help you build it or deliver it, so that when you get it at the end, it's done? Part of that is trust. Part of that is, proof of concept. Part of that is, giving it to them, or there's 100 different ways you can do that. But on a bigger thing, this is where I'm going with it. So let's say drywall. I'm going to use drywall as one of my examples. Drywall is expensive to make, right? I mean, to build a small plant would cost about $140 million. I don't have $140 million. I could go to a bank and they might do it because it's a real estate thing. But really what's going to happen, if I could go to my clients, the ones that want to buy the boards, and say, okay, we're going to deliver boards to you, drywall, sheets of drywall to you. We're going to deliver 100,000 sheets to you in 6 months, or 3 months, or 3 weeks. Let's say that I wouldn't wait 6 months. But if I was going to deliver them to you in 3 weeks, I want this much money up front, right? And then I go and I take that money and I build it. You can do that, especially if it's a bigger sales cycle in general. Like you're going to deliver a piece of machinery, you're going to deliver something where there's a manufacturing process. You can actually sometimes get that. Depending on what value this does, this is why I say the higher the differential of the problem that you're solving and your ability to solve it is, they will look at you and they might say, you know what, this is a really, really good idea, and I'm really excited about it. I will invest a little bit into your company because I'm going to get the ultimate benefit. And so you give me a reduced rate on what it costs me to buy that from you in the future. Like, so say it's $100,000, and instead of $100,000, you're going to give it to me for $80,000. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you all that $80,000 in advance, and I want a 3%, ownership of your company. So what you're doing is you're still fulfilling a need. And if you understand the need well enough, you can actually build the financing for it in advance. Does that help? George, I'm kind of dancing on looking for more specific things, but I think you're getting the point.
I think that's a good way to approach it. I hadn't really thought of, quite honestly, like the time value of money thing, right? But that's essentially what you're saying, and also it means that as part of your measurement of your solution, that, if your solution costs $100,000, then you've proven, or you have a good feeling that it's, 5x, 10x for the customer in terms of their, their savings, the differential.
Yeah.
And you can have that discussion with them, and it's not a vague conversation.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me rephrase that in a slightly different way too. So the whole point of, okay, so if you're going to go to an investor's looking for an ROI, right? We know that they're looking for some kind of a return on it, whether it's an interest rate or some kind of ongoing residual value in your company, right? So that's the premise in investing anyway. I'm going to give you something that I have, money, and in return you're going to give me some money back with interest or at a higher rate or something like that. Well, the argument with the customer is no different. You're going to give me some money, but instead of giving you money back, which you could be, we could have an investor relationship or a hybrid, I'm going to give you product at potentially a discounted rate. Now, you don't have to deeply discount it, to Diane's question. I mean, you're not going to give up your margins necessarily, but you can give up. I mean, think of what the value is to you. The value to you is now you have money and finances to be able to build the thing, and you can use them as an example. You can use them as a case study. You can use them as a testimonial, right? So it's worth giving up a little bit in the beginning to be able to prove it out, get the thing out to the market, and start producing it. And so if you create it in such a way that you can do that, then they're still getting a value at the end, right? They get a discounted product. They get the product that they're looking for. Again, if nobody cares about your product, you're going to have a hard time doing this. But if you got something that they're going, oh my goodness, where have you been all my life? Which is what you want them to say, right, Dale? We've heard that a lot from the GrowthX guys, right? Where have you been all my life? You want 5 people that are going to say that. And if you have those 5 people, they're likely going to try to figure out a way, and they probably have some capital to be able to help you get it going. That
Thanks.
Any other questions? Guarantee I didn't nail that.
Anybody have any more questions?
Yeah, a specific situation, somebody's wrestling with something and maybe wants some insights on how to handle it, or how to make a pitch, or how to talk about financing, or what kind of numbers you should be asking, or anything like that. It is possible to stump me, but probably maybe not.
Crickets.
I have a question. Can you elaborate on how long should be a investor pitch deck or investor pitch presentation, and what should you most importantly cover in it?
Great question, and I don't know if it's I'm gonna actually share my screen again just for a moment here, because that actually I was almost anticipating that question. So in my mind, and let me just turn off my video just to make it easier. In my mind, everything starts with 2 words. What are the 2 words you own? I own Entrepreneur Roadmap as an example, right? Is there two words that you can have that somebody would search for in Google? And then you have a 1-sentence pitch. You should be able to explain what your business does in 1 sentence. We're helping, we're ending poverty through well-executed entrepreneurship and microloan. That's my 1-sentence pitch for Lend Hope. Right? And then you get a 3-sentence pitch. You know how many most people have a great idea for business, but they don't know how to build a business around it, right? We've solved that by having an online do-it-yourself program. Imagine if everybody could, get access to the help they needed for building an entrepreneurship. That's a 3-sentence pitch. I'm not going to do a 3-minute or 10-minute, but it really goes. Like, the problem that most people have when it comes to pitching is they spend way too much time trying to explain everything. Don't explain the nuggets that's going to get them excited and get them to the next meeting. The ideal pitch gets you to another meeting. That's it. A great pitch will get you another meeting, and then another meeting, and then another meeting, and you just keep going until they give you money, right? Or they tell you to go away, right? Which is fine. But so when it comes down to it, I would usually encourage maybe 10 to 12 slides. Everybody's got a slightly different version of that, but you want to get a couple of basics. And I have a due diligence, or not due diligence, but I have a kind of a slide deck that that you could have or share. I share with my entrepreneurs when I'm working with them. But basically, you want title slide and an ending slide, right? I say have 1,000 appendices. Go for it. Like you can have I just showed you an appendice, right? I had the end slide, and then this is the slide that was right after it. You could have one that answers every single potential question they have. And man, oh man, do you look good when you can start pulling up the slides as needed. But in your basic deck for a 3-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute, 20-minute pitch, whatever, you have absolutely just the core things that you need. You don't want to be fast and trying to load them up with everything they need. You want just a couple of important things. What's the problem? Well-defined problem that you really, really understand, and you really, really get. What's your solution, and how do you solve it? Why are you different? Who's the team, and why do you do that? Remember, they're looking for 2 things. How can you prove that these numbers are realistic, and how can you prove that you have the plan and the people that can carry this out? Right? If you do that in one deck, and 10 slides max, you're off to a good start. And then have 100 like in the appendices, right? And that's when you can pull them all up as you need to. How does one address the situation we're in, pandemic and economy? Well, okay, so I want to talk about that for a second. Yeah, this idea of the pandemic is a really interesting one. So I told you we're doing work in Central America through these micro lending apps, right? So we created this pilot project to do down in Honduras, in San Pedro Sula, Honduras, and we did all this groundwork and legwork, and we were down there meeting with everybody. This is before the pandemic happened, and we were trying to talk to everybody about entrepreneurship, and everybody's excited. One of the problems they'll have down there is I was talking to a 32-year-old woman, mom, and she can't get a job. And the only reason she can't get a job is because she's too old. She's 32. She's not that old, but she can't get a job. Ageism is a massive thing down there. Classism is a massive thing down there. If you're not in the right class, or you don't have the right name, or you don't have the right age, it's crazy. I mean, so what's the alternative? Start a business, right? That's a great answer, but a lot of people don't know how to. So we started going down there and talking about entrepreneurship and these microloans, and of course, it was overwhelming. Anyways, we got to the start of the pandemic. We were about to release all the loans. We had a whole bunch of entrepreneurs wanting loans, and the pandemic hit, COVID hit, and everything shut down, like total police state. You couldn't go out to get groceries. If you could find groceries, you would probably get mugged with sticks and stones on the way home. Like, that's how bad it was. Crazy compared to anything we've experienced. You go to India and some of the stuff going on now, it's still crazy right now. But anyway, so we were going to give out these loans, and we stopped, right? It's like, hold on, like, let's get our feet underneath us a little bit. So I got 40 entrepreneurs on the phone with a translator. I don't speak Spanish. And we started having this conversation about what the world is like in their world. And it's just insane. Like, it was heartbreaking, some of the stuff I was hearing. But then I started talking about pivoting. I started talking about opportunity. I started talking about helping one another. I started talking about what is possible. What if? How could we? What might we do? And the level of the room changed. And I mean, you gotta love their hearts. Anyways, massive encouragement, massive optimism. We released all the loans right in the middle of COVID in a lockdown situation. Then guess what happened that summer, 2020? 2 hurricanes, not 1, 2. 168 of my friends lost everything, their house, everything they own. We still, at the end of the year, had 100% repayment rate on the loan. I don't know a bank in Canada that has that kind of repayment. My point is this: the pandemic is the pandemic, and some of the best businesses in the world started in the Depression. You can't choose what cards you get. You can choose how to play them. Absolutely. Figure out ways to be creative. Come up with different things. Business doesn't have to be this formulaic, go and get money and follow the bouncing ball and do it the way you need to do it. Man, be creative. Go and try anything. There's all kinds of ways to do it, and just get some good support, good help. And there is a slowdown. Absolutely. but not for everybody. My business, you know, went absolutely bonkers, and it went international all last year. Right? That's not a bad problem now. Now, I'm not boasting, and in fact, I often caution saying that because I don't want to make people who have suffer more, right? But I've had friends that have service businesses and restaurants and things like that, and they've had to be really creative, and man, some of them are thriving. So the economy is what the economy is. You can't change that, right? But you can change what you do with it, right? And there's all kinds of interesting and creative ways. Man, this is the time to get creative, and it could be the time to succeed like you've never even imagined. I'll leave that at that. Any other thoughts? I probably have a chance for one more for sure.
More question? One more question? Looks like we're good.
Okay.
So Colin, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today and actually making it very easy to understand. And so really appreciate that. Just a reminder to everybody, we're actually doing a repeat of the grant funding sessions for those who couldn't make it because we had a full house as well. So that's going to be on June 9th at noon for anybody who wanted to know more about government grants. And any of our students who are on this meeting, just a reminder that we're launching our Entrepreneurship Blue Book program in September. If you're interested in having us help you move from, hey, I have an idea, to actually launching your company next year, you want to contact the Maji Center for more information about that. We're also open all summer for one-on-ones for our alumni. Dale is here to help you and our students and our staff. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here all summer. Thank you again, Colin. Really appreciate you giving you your time and talent and skill.
My pleasure. Love it. Thanks for having me. We'll talk again soon.
Have a great day, everybody.